Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and I had to get a very special hat for today's episode because this morning Epinoia kicked my ass straight down the rabbit hole. Like, whoa. It started off with something that was just kind of like, okay, this is what she does, but then she just started laying things out and putting them together and dropping things in my lap, and it's like, oh my God. This is just freaking crazy. So, no, I'm not actually going to wear that, but I'm just trying to give you the tone here. Like this is like a conspiracy theorist wet dream. So what does Revelation, book of Revelation, like what does that even mean? Why is it associated with apocalypse? It's from the root word apocalypsis or something like that. Greek word, which means revealing or unveiling. So put it another way, dropping the veil. So that's one way to look at like the last chapter of this place is the veil drops. And like all that stuff that has always been, hidden or vehemently opposed by officialdom suddenly is like out in the open for everybody to see. So I don't know, I've been waiting for this big event. I think there may end up being a lot of big events because for some of the stuff to play out, this ties into clear new, like the way she lined it up. There's some stuff from the remote viewing guys that's being clarified, multiple topics, but I'm just, as it kept going and I'm writing down and getting the video clips and everything, she's just feeding it to me. I'm like, holy crap, this video is going to be freaking nuts. But we're going to start off with like where we started in the whole thing, which is a bit more like the usual tone for this stuff. But then it goes, like some of the stuff that popped up in front of me as we're doing this was just like, oh my God, you gotta be freaking kidding me. And it ties to other things that she's already shown or dropped hints about. So, if you want to journey down the rabbit hole with me, then don't go away. Okay, let me start with why I might have possibly gotten to this place this morning. It ties into what we covered in the last video, or part of one of the things we covered in the last video when we talked about basic mechanics of wanting and how to clear things up, and the things that were being shown to me as like these are like the key things that you need to do. One of those things was there's only 2 commandments in the New Testament version, because a lot of people just don't realize that there's 2 different gods in that book. Completely different dude from the first one that had 10 commandments. So Jesus gave his followers, it's like, I'm giving you 2 commandments. Love the Father with all your heart and love one another. And it's been explained how the Father is the biggest thing, the highest point, the highest consciousness. Everything is a part of it, which means some of the stuff that's within it is not fun. And Epinoia had been kind of like revealing through a series of things. It's like, this is like a big issue that everybody has at a deep subconscious level, where they blame God for things. They got a chip on their shoulder with God. It's like everybody's got this one particular daddy issue. If you can get that daddy issue resolved, a lot of things free up. So when I did my protocols last night, I'm like, how, like, I understand what this problem is. I'm like, how do you turn that on? How do you love the Father the same way it's easy to love the Mother, the Divine Mother? You know, I want to be in perfect alignment, but I'm not sure what to do. And what came to me in the morning, couple things. The first thing was, like, he already gave you a simple thing in the Bible, which was the Lord's Prayer. And it's being addressed to the Father, so I'm good with that. I know it's going to the right place. And then the other thing was Psalm 23. But it's just like, just doing those are like putting your devotion to the highest point of consciousness. We're not talking religion here. That's just, religion calls them certain things, but it's the highest point. It's the everything that you want to be in alignment with. And it's from that portion we learn from the Nag Hammadi, where you get knowledge. So the masculine feminine combo is knowledge and wisdom and insight. But you get a lot more knowledge by going directly to the highest point of consciousness. Maybe that had something to do with, like, this big crazy data dump today. I don't know, but I just felt it was worth mentioning. So the way that it started this morning, Epinoia has many different ways that she can communicate things to you. I talk about them all the time. She can use songs, she can use movies, she can use symbols, synchronicities. She can just freaking speak to you. She can pop ideas in your head, you know, threads to follow, get other people to say something at a specific time. It's like endless ways. But this was something particular, because what stood out to me about it is the last time this happened was right at the beginning, when she started the whole, you know, the time is coming thing in April of last year. Actually, that one started March. It was my birthday. Yeah, it was my birthday. I remember waking up in the morning and the song is like really popping into my head. And it's not a song that I would normally listen to or haven't heard recently, but it's because it had a specific message to it. It was Three Little Birds by Bob Marley. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be all right. And from there, we would start to notice little symbolical synchronicities about the three birds that are encoded into the tarot, and then cardinals, in the feminine and masculine representations being cardinals for the feminine, blue jays for the masculine. And then other people in the group started hearing it without me telling them about it. And we were telling each other about these songs popping into our heads, and then everybody was seeing the cardinals. It's kind of like the message was basically like, we're going to talk about some scary stuff, but understand you're going to be okay. Well, that's kind of like what happened this morning. Except this morning, the song that popped in my head, it was going for a while, and then I'm like, why is this song in my head? First of all, I don't like the song. And second, I don't like the band. So I'm like, I know there's stuff in that song. I better take a closer look at it. And the song was Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers. So in light of everything that we've been talking about, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. There was actually two songs. The other one was Snow, and there's stuff in that one, but it's not as striking. We're just going to focus on the one. But let's recap a little bit on these different lines in the song Californication.
Psychic spies from China try to steal your mind's elation.
Psychic spies, very first line. Okay, so we all know psychic spies are basically remote viewers. I mean, that's how the program started. Long time ago, I had a book by Jim Marrs called Psi Spies, which detailed like the story of like the first, U.S. military, remote viewing teams and stuff like that. So right off the bat, right out of the gate, she's making a connection to the remote viewing stuff.
It's the edge of the world in all of Western civilization. The sun may rise in the east, at least it's settled in a final location. It's understood that Hollywood sells Californication.
Edge of the world and all of Western civilization. It's basically what's getting ready to crumble. The sun may rise in the east, at least it's settled in a final location. Not sure what that means, but sun, moon, and the stars are a big factor in all this stuff. But wait, there's more.
Mary McGill, be my fairy to the world, be my very own constellation.
To me, that line right there is a clear Lumen reference. And I have found just by listening to enough songs that I think a lot of like really, really big music artists have a clear connection to their Lumen. But Marry Me Girl, Mary put the two together with the two into one, like the whole thing that I did, right brain, left brain, masculine, feminine, become the rebus, alchemy, the great work, philosopher's stone. Yeah, that's all Lumen stuff. Be my fairy to the world. Well, when she first popped out, everyone's heard that story a million times. She looked a lot like a big Tinkerbell, big fiery Tinkerbell. Be my very own constellation. Well, drawing a connection to the stars, but then there's several constellations that directly reflect her. And constellations, we've been talking about constellations a lot here lately.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
Okay, space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. That's going to become apparent what it's talking about as we go further into the video, but she hadn't dropped that yet at the point in which I'm still examining the song.
In Cobain, can you hear the spheres singing songs off station to station?
In Cobain, can you hear the spheres singing songs off station to station? That's up for speculation, but the spheres are typically referring to old school stuff, the planets, music of the spheres, like stuff in the sky, the rulers, the stuff like that. That was a little, I don't know.
And Alderon's not far away, it's Californication.
But then, in Alderon's not far away, it's Californication. Well, I think most of us know what that's referring to. Alderaan is Princess Leia's planet in Star Wars that got destroyed by the Death Star. So, very clear message in that.
Destruction leads to a very rough road, but it also breeds creation.
Then we get to the part which is what we've been talking about on here. Destruction leads to a very rough road, but it also breeds creation. Cycle of, destruction and creation. That's this whole thing's about. It's what we've been talking about. The destroyer, all that, starting over, going from the world card back to the fool's card again.
An earthquake's out to a girl's guitar, that's just another good vibration.
And earthquakes are to a girl's guitar, they're just another good vibration. Okay, earthquakes, obviously that's a big thing. The girl's guitar, well, Sophia is known as the mother of the world, and depending on what framework you're using, like Mother Earth, all that stuff. So she's the one that actually in the Gnostic books is the one that breaks this whole place down.
And tidal waves couldn't save the world from Californication.
And tidal waves couldn't save the world from Californication. Tidal waves, tsunamis, that was brought up back in the beginning when she first started it back in April of last year. It was like tornadoes and tsunamis, tornadoes and tsunamis. And if some of these things that are being projected by the remote viewers that we're going to cover happen, then there would almost certainly be some of those super tsunamis. Yeah, Californication. So once we get to that part with the remote viewer things, like that could be like a Pacific impact of something, asteroid, ring of fire, another volcano just erupted. We had on the 15th, you had, these are pretty much active volcanoes, but on the 15th we had a volcano eruption in Italy, and then we just had one in Japan. So the volcanoes are starting to get all stirred up. So I'm not going to cover the other song, which was Snow. It's that one that goes, hey, oh, that one. You can just like look up the lyrics of it and kind of see the words, and you can see he's talking some interesting metaphysical stuff. But that's what she put into my head this morning. And when I started to look at the lyrics, certain ones were jumping out at me. Now, this next thing could be a complete coincidence, because I see articles like this all the freaking time. But there are things about it that kind of stand out a little bit. Okay? So the next thing that I saw, once I clicked off of that and I went to Google, and it was like at the top of the Google page, this article. And it said, NASA warns about 180-foot asteroid hurtling towards Earth at scary speed. The asteroid is expected to make its closest approach on July 25th. That's why it stood out, because that 25th, 26th, 27th period, that's my hot zone. That's like the time frame. That's like the Deadpool and Wolverine marker. Like, that's the time I'm expecting something interesting to happen. And they put in here, in case the asteroid deviates from its orbit, its consequences can be scary and maybe catastrophic for Earth. Well, I've been pulling a lot of catastrophe cards, not just in the tarot, but in the astrological deck. I keep getting the Grand Cross in the astrological deck, and that's like a catastrophe card. So that was pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and jump to connecting that with some of the clips that we've seen from the remote viewers here lately.
Okay, first up, I see the horizon of Earth, and yes, it is round, and there's an energy event on the horizon. Inbound, a strike, a vapor trail, like an asteroid or meteorite, some kinetic energy. Don't want to read too much into that, but that's the visual. This is the same one as my first. If you go back, it's the same imagery of something striking. This is spacecraft in distress entering the atmosphere. Sputter, sizzle, pop, something shredding through the atmosphere.
I was wondering if that was a same one or a different one, but
I don't know. I just did this, and then I realized, didn't I just draw that?
So what's interesting about that, and I believe there are other ones that maybe some of the other guys got, but I didn't want to go take, like, that was like the best one. I didn't want to like go dig through them all again. But what's interesting about that is, especially in the regular end time story, like from Revelation, there's actually two big events where something, well, there's a lot, the end time stuff is got a lot of stuff falling from the sky, but there's two major things in the regular story. I forget which exactly. I know one of them is the fifth trumpet, but I don't remember when the other one is. So the fifth trumpet one is Wormwood, I believe. That's the one that leads to the furnace being opened and all the crazy monsters pouring out, which we found correlations to that scattered around a bunch of other different things. It connects to some of the symbology with 27 degrees Taurus, about, you know, a big dark cloud and crazy monsters, you know, coming upon the earth, which is also talked about in the Colburn Bible. And that one could be this, you know, we're theorizing here, could be like the second one that he drew, because he talked about like spacecraft. So that might, I mean, just don't know. The other big one is the mountain blazing with fire. Like that one's clearly talking about like an asteroid type impact, which I think is more of like the first one that he drew. But either which way, these things have been coming up a lot lately. Like earlier in the video, when I got done with the after I was looking at the Californication thing, the next thing that I stumbled upon that she popped up in my face was that article, which again, I see articles like that a lot. Like, I don't know why they do it, but it's always like, oh, the asteroid's coming near the Earth, blah 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 blah. The only reason like that particular one stood out to me is because it was remote viewed by him, and they've been knocking it out of the park lately. It's part of the story that I get from Epinoia, and it's projected to be, it says unless something knocks it off course, like it could bump into something else or whatever, but it had the July 27th date, which is in my hot zone. So that's why that one was in there. Keeps standing out to me. Some of the other ones that I have shown before, like clips from the remote viewers, actually tie more into possible things that connect to the deeper crazy that we're about to get into. But like, this is the stuff that just keeps repeatedly coming up. Like, it finds a way. Like, that's what she does. Like, she pulls all the little clues to you, and you're like, oh, here it is again. Oh, here it is again. And then she, like, the inside of my head is hard to describe, but it looks like this. Sometimes when it's in data mode, it's like this quantum matrix of like all these data points, and she can just be like, connect the dots, connect the dots, connect the dots. Remember this, remember that, remember this, remember that. You heard this in here, you heard that there, you read this there, you saw this in a movie, and she's doing all this stuff like really, really, really quickly. Which is exactly what the Bible said would happen in the end times. Like, certain people would start to prophecy or whatever, like, because like they say, like they describe a lot when they're explaining the remote viewing, and like what Cliff High talks about, like that, like these luminosity events start seeping into people's subconscious, and they start talking about them because they're picking up on something that they don't fully understand. But when it comes to her and the way that I'm connected to her, she just brings it to me. Like, it's interesting, like overlapping what I do with listening to what they do. Totally different methodologies and ways that we interact with this consciousness field, but we keep ending up in the same places around the same time frames. So that was the second thing, and some of that ties into the song and all that. Like, it's just like painting a picture. It's like, these are the things that are coming. How far out they are, we don't know. They could be a little bit further out than we think, because they would be such a big luminosity event. Like, the bigger the impact of the event, the further out the ripples are felt. So it might seem like it's close to us when we're picking up on it, but that's because it's such a strong event. It might be months down the road. We don't know. It's just like when she's continually bringing the same things to you and continually making connections for you. Like, she's telling you ahead of time. You're not going to know exactly when, but she's saying, like, this is coming. This is the stuff that we have covered. This is the stuff that I have shown you. So there's going to be at least 2 big impact events that are sky-based. And this isn't even counting all the stuff that they've got from all like the war type things with like missiles and stuff like that. Those are completely freaking separate from this, insofar as like how she's giving it to me and laying it out. But wait, there's more. before we get to the bigger, crazier thing, I want to insert in here the next thing that she showed me. Like this, she just dropped it in my freaking lap. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Because she's been dropping clues about this over the last week or so. Like, I don't always grasp like what, like she's saying, like she's already said, like, this is a script, this is a story that we're playing out in this place. And clues have been left in the past. Like, we've been talking about it a lot lately. We're going to keep putting the clues in here so we have them all in one big place. But it ties into the whole storm thing. There's a storm coming. You've seen that a lot lately on this channel.
There is a storm coming, a black and terrible storm.
There's a storm coming.
I sense there's a storm coming.
There's a storm coming.
There's a storm coming. Okay? So let me just put a couple pieces together to set you up for what she just showed me.
Next to the White House tonight, President Trump raising new questions this evening after what he said during a photo op, summoning reporters, telling them this was the calm before the storm. ABC's Cecilia Vega asking the White House today, what did he mean?
In the White House state dining room, this is the image President Trump summoned reporters to see. The president smiling, surrounded by his top military leaders and their spouses. Then came the unsolicited cryptic comment.
You guys know what this represents? Well, maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
And today in the Oval Office, we tried again.
Mr. President, what did you mean by calm before the storm yesterday? What did you mean by that?
Thank you very much.
After a wink and a pause,
You'll find out. Take a look at what happened.
So if you remember back during Trump's first presidency, that was the age of QAnon, which got everybody spun up. It got the people that were following it spun up, and it drove the mainstream media authority freaking up a wall. It triggered the enforcers, which we'll talk about later in the video. Which these are the people that just viciously slam all this stuff and just berate people that believe in it. Like, don't look at, all you people are crazy, stupid conspiracy theorists that don't have a grip on reality and all this stuff, which I gotta admit, like, a lot of them didn't. Sometimes people want to believe stuff so much that they just latch onto it without any kind of critical thinking. Like, yeah, I see something's going on here, but I don't know what it is. Like, they just want to, like, they see stuff and they just latch on to whatever explanation is being given. But there was definitely some kind of, like, the big conspiracy was, like, Trump was working in cooperation with these secret white hats that were being led by, I mean, it sounds nuts, but just wait. They were being led by JFK Jr., who wasn't really dead, but he was in disguise. And they were going to come back and take down the deep state. And Q was like revealing all this stuff on Twitter. And it was like this big, crazy, freaking mess. It was like the biggest conspiracy. It was like all the conspiracy stuff like mixed into one thing. The problem with it was it didn't go anywhere. Like, they kept saying, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And even after Trump got out, these people kind of took it over, and it was mainly on the other platforms like BitChute and stuff like that. Like all these like, if you can't see through this part, I'm like, you're blind. But like all these jackasses that are like filming these daily videos from their living room in the trailer that they live in, reporting on what's going on behind the scenes. I'm like, how the hell would you know, trailer person? But you got the inside track on, and they spin these tales about all this stuff is going on behind the scenes, and any day now, like he's gonna emerge as, like, they got everybody spun up. But by that point, if there was any truth to whatever the Q thing was, like in the beginning. If, because there was some strange stuff, it got co-opted and stirred people right off the cliff and, you know, into the crazy train. But the certain things about it, like the storm references and the things that Trump said, like there's definitely something strange about that. So here's where it gets stranger. Okay, the Trump assassination attempt was the July 15th event, insofar as like the biggest thing in the closest proximity to the real July 15th event, which was the Mars and Uranus conjunction with Algol and all the symbology surrounding that. Violent uprisings, you know, impetuous actions, bloody injuries, like all, you know, the stars are like the guide to where we are in the script of this big crazy story that we're in. Okay, so remember earlier when I said, this is for those of you that didn't see any of that QAnon stuff and maybe just weren't interested in it or don't know what it was about or anything like that. So remember earlier I said that the big theory that that QAnon was pushing was that JFK Jr. wasn't actually dead, but he was like orchestrating things from behind the scenes, and he was wearing this crazy makeup disguise, and he was always seen around Trump events, this guy. So it looks like this. Like there's JFK Jr., and then this is the guy who they claimed. I'm not claiming that. I'm just telling you what was claimed. That they claim that this is him in disguise, and he's been running around this whole time. Well, guess what? If the Trump assassination thing wasn't already crazy fishy already, then take another look at it.
They're getting better with time, my guys. Take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. We ready? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move? Shooters down. We're good to move. We're clear. We're clear. Let's move. We're clear.
Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down. Get the shoe.
Watch out. Well, I do see people leaving this area. Obviously, this is not, you know, if you're in a position to leave, I'm trying to. The military has moved, obviously, the Trump team out of here. The military has left along with the motorcycles. So they have most of this. Miranda, there's a lot of people here in a state of shock, in a state of anger. I mean, immediately after this.
They're cutting it out. They're cutting it out. On the live was bad. Should I call in on the phone?
into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
So not only was that same guy at that event, but he was perfectly placed behind him. So when Trump's doing all this pointing and stuff, he's literally pointing right at him. Like, what are the freaking odds of that? Like, I don't know what's going on. I have no freaking idea. But like, these are threads that keep coming up. I'm not claiming anything. I don't know anything. But it's just crazy how she dropped that in my lap too. Like, somebody spotted him and people were starting to notice, and I'm like, is this a Photoshop or something? So I went back and pulled the video again. I'm like, holy crap, there he is. He really is sitting right there in plain sight, perfectly aligned. I'm like, this whole thing is some kind of crazy ass game. Like, we already knew that. We already knew that. I mean, I know a lot about this place that I simply cannot prove to anybody outside of myself being connected to her. There's a big scripted, crazy, like, we are literally in some sort of matrix, puzzle, story, world game. We are. Whether you believe that or not, that's not my problem. But we are. Like, this stuff is all planned out. It's playing out, and it's all for our soul growth. But seriously, you gotta admit, like, with all this, like, she's literally, remember I mentioned, go back like a week or so before any of this stuff popped up, I said on the channel, when like, she literally said to me, like, where we go one, we go all. I'm like, where have I heard that before? I'm like, wasn't that like, wasn't that some QAnon shit? It was. And then it came up again. All of a sudden, the Q the Storm X account, Twitter account, started dropping things similar to what she was saying. But like, it never lines up in time with anything. But then it's connected to the stuff that Trump says. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but clearly something nutty is. But that was crazy to have that guy pop up again and have him be perfectly placed in the middle of this Trump event. So he's literally pointing at it. Like, who can possibly set this thing up? See, people always like, they don't think like big enough. They're like, well, how could this agency set this up? Or how could Trump set this up? Or like, look, you got to think bigger. Like, she is literally sitting on top of the dome of the world. Like, there's lower forces that are manipulating things, but she's manipulating those things, and we're just the little players in the game that don't know what the hell is going on. But we can see things and point and notice things and be like, yeah, there's some weird, crazy shit going on. I don't know what it is, but I can clearly see, you know, the weird, crazy shit because it's right in front of my eyes, and that's how eyes work. So why is this happening? Why are we seeing these things? Like, she's been showing me a lot of weird stuff about Trump lately. Some of it good, some of it bad. But I don't know. It's like, that's the type of stuff, like, we won't know until we get far enough ahead. Now, let me throw a secondary thing out here because this is breaking news. And I just saw stuff about this last night. So when I was scanning the internet last night, she highlighted something to click on and look at. I don't remember if it was a video or an article, but it was talking about what the Democrats coming up with a plan, like, how can we compete with Trump? This is just, I'm not saying this, I'm saying this is what I read. So, and it was starting to show up in other places too, like on YouTube or whatever. So allegedly, what the big plan was is, like, they got to force Joe Biden to step down. Okay? That's happening right now. That's just been announced. He's dropping out of the race. It's like, okay, so they want to wash the entire ticket. They definitely don't want Kamala Harris's dumbass in there because no one likes her even less than Joe Biden. So this was the plan that reportedly is being kicked around. They will introduce a new front runner. Could be anybody, could be Gavin Newsom, like that'd probably be who I would expect them to pick. And then, here's the kicker. The remote viewers recently, maybe I can find that clip, I don't know. I already got a ton of stuff in this video, but just take my word for it. Recently, it might have been the July report, they said that there was this big thing about Obama in the Oval Office, kind of like taking charge again, acting like he runs the show again.
So this was kind of weird. I saw the Oval Office and I see Obama visiting in the Oval Office, getting more publicly involved in the Democratic plan to keep the presidency within the party. And I see Obama making big moves to influence the election. And so he's in here giving a speech as if it's the good old days where he's still, you know, in power.
Like him taking more center stage in relation to the Oval Office again. And then what was being reported now is what allegedly their big plan is to put a new front runner in to replace Joe Biden, and then that front runner will appoint Obama as his VP as a loophole workaround, because Obama cannot run for office again. He's already served 2 terms. He can't run. But the loophole is that doesn't mean he can't be appointed. See, the VPs are appointed, they're chosen. Whether or not that works or not legally, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's what they're talking about. And the remote viewers clearly said, like, Obama was coming back center stage. And in the reports I've read so far today about Joe Biden stepping down, Obama is heavy in that. Oh, well, Obama told him he needs to step down. Why is this guy still, around? But it seems like he always is. So what a lot of people have always theorized is that Obama is the actual, shadow president making the actual decisions, with Joe Biden being like a figurehead puppet. Because whenever something big goes down, it's like, oh, Obama's not too far away to come up and say something. So the theory, which I cannot confirm, I'm not saying I believe it, I'm just saying it makes sense. Obama is literally the only thing they have for their side that even could remotely compete with Trump, because he was just as big to the left as Trump is to the right. So imagine all of a sudden they appoint someone like Gavin Newsom, right? Which, he's a jackass. He's basically destroyed California. But, he's got the appearance and all that stuff. And he's like, I'm going to appoint Obama to be my VP. Well, in the Democratic Party, everybody internally knows, who's really going to be running the show. So, this is our chance to get Obama back. Now, suddenly, the race gets a lot more interesting because Obama got big-time votes. Not quite as much as Trump did the second time, but back in the day when Obama was first running, he was as popular to the left as Trump is to the right now. So if you've got him on the ticket, even if they wanted to steal the election, it would be more believable because those numbers were so much more closer. So that's the kind of level of crazy that we're at right now. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But the remote viewers did make a clear remote viewing. They're Obama suddenly being this big, kind of being back in the Oval Office, kind of he runs the place again, something about that. Well, that's what we kind of see panning out right now. So a lot of stuff going on in that political sphere. So let's go ahead and jump into the deepest part of the rabbit hole. So at this point, I'm barely wrapping my brain around everything that we see so far. But wait, she wasn't done yet. I don't remember how we originally got onto this morning because it was all moving so fast. But I've mentioned it several times on this channel recently. At different times when I'm doing the divination with her or whatever, this card keeps coming up in weird places. Now, not everything means what you think it means, especially in stuff like the tarot. But this card has always stood out as there's something more going on here because it's got sun rays coming off of it. It's got a face in there looking down, and it's dropping those fire yods, which is divine fire, whatever. It's making all the people down below or the animals go crazy. It's creating tidal waves. It's connecting to two towers. This has always been a weird thing. And then recently, the remote viewers all of a sudden started bringing up the moon, in their July reports and stuff like that, a couple different times. And I don't remember how we started on this, but once it got started, she started filling in the blanks, connect this to this, connect this to that, connect this to this, movie scenes popping up in my head. And this is where we go full tilt, revelation. Revelation means unveiling, some of the biggest conspiracy theories you've ever heard. That to me, she's actually told me some of this stuff before, but I don't get attached to it because what can I do about it? What can I prove? I can't prove jack shit. But I've always, kind of intuitively felt things or known things or been attracted to certain information. And it's yep, that's definitely weird. Yep, I can see why they would say that. And I already do not believe anything authority tells us about the world. Like that's just being a Gnostic, 101. You see things, you see more. And anytime, any particular topic in which the enforcers are unleashed, which again, I'll talk about the enforcers later. Like that is a clear sign. Like if the enforcers are the people that are all over the place, especially on the internet. They're the ones that I commonly reference because she draws my attention to it. And I'm like, it isn't about the shape of the earth. That's not what she's showing me. But it's most notably seen in the whole flat earth debate. So flat earthers try to talk about their flat earth stuff. And then there is like this unlimited, unstoppable, never-ending flood of people that just besiege any video, any Facebook group, any internet post that even remotely talks about flat earth. And it's just, they're so nasty. Name calling, belittling, ridiculing, just nasty. Like, if you believe anything except what the official story of authority taught you, you are a stupid, crazy, flurfer, flat-tard, brain-dead, knucklehead, doesn't understand basic science, freaking moron that should just be harassed until the day you die or until you shut the F up. Now, these particular, and then it's always, their signature is the laughing emoji. You always want to pay attention to any subject in which those people are unleashed, because they are the enforcers of the official story. And anytime there is a significant enough conspiracy or event or topic which is critical, crucial when it comes to the overall, like how this place really works, that you can't actually see, like those people will be unleashed. They're like the guardians. They're like the sheepdogs that are keeping the sheep all together. But these sheepdogs have sticks that they will literally beat you with senseless. They are nasty, and more than a large majority of them are actually bots. Like if you dig into their profiles and things like that and say, is this a real person? Half of them aren't. So there's literally, some of them are, not all of them. Some of them are real, like not all of them. Some of them are actually an algorithm that is just meant to harass, berate, ridicule anybody that talks about this stuff. The other thing to look for is like if any of these conspiracy theory type things are like a danger to the official narrative, the news and officialdom will get in on it too. They'll unleash Neil deGrasse Tyson. They'll do stories about the crazy, idiot, stupid people that believe in something that's different from what we told them that it is. It is very, very important to them that everybody colors within the lines when it comes to particular things. The other way you can know what these topics are is if you watch videos about certain topics. There's only about, I want to say 5 or 6 that I know off the top of my head. If you watch certain videos on YouTube about certain topics, you'll know what these topics are because they will have this Wikipedia context thing underneath the video that explains it. Oh, I want to do a video about, say, flat earth. Wikipedia, flat earth is this archaic, stupid, ridiculous theory, from way back when people were stupid, that certain stupid people still believe this stupid idea, or things like that. What were they all? I know 9/11 has one. I know reptilians has one. I know flat earth has one. But there's a few other ones. It's like, why do these particular topics have these Wikipedia things to kind of like redirect people? It's like, oh, what is this story? Oh, I'm looking at Wikipedia. Oh, it says these people are stupid. Better not look at it. It would be one thing if they had that thing for like every conspiracy theory out there, but no, it's only particular ones. And those particular ones are the same ones that these enforcers will berate you about if you talk about it publicly. But anyway, so let's go ahead and jump into the next batch of crazy in the deepest part of the rabbit hole.
This one was really interesting. You don't see the moon coming up in this type of monthly world events very often, but both Daz and Derek talked about the moon specifically, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what this means.
These are my gears, something big but finely machined. There's some intricate parts moving. Well, Cliff will like this, because I think this is the moon. I said there's people are seated at a table controlling, doing some plotting, like grid or math calculations, and it affects this thing that looks like the moon.
That's no moon. It's a space station. It's too big to be a space station.
I have a very bad feeling about this. Oh, please tell me this is really happening. They're turning. They're like wheels or rings.
These are my gears, something big but finely machined. There's some intricate parts moving.
This must be how the moon stabilizes itself. Some kind of gyroscopic system.
Well, Cliff will like this, because I think this is the moon. I said there's people are seated at a table controlling, doing some plotting, like grid or math calculations, and it affects this thing that looks like the moon.
It's well hidden and unstable. One blast to any part of it will destroy the entire station. Oh, it's beautiful.
You know, putting people into what I call this moon matrix or this moon Saturn matrix, it was perfectly feasible. And the flow of my life over the last 18 months has certainly been putting that information before me. It said, one of the things that was said to me was, knowledge will be put into his mind, and at other times he will be led to knowledge. Now, from that moment, there has been a recurring sequence in my life for 2 decades. And that is that in the early days, when I was still kind of what's going on, I would be given knowledge through incredible synchronicity of things coming into my life, experiences, meeting people, coming across books, coming across this document or whatever, having this experience. But after a very few short years of that, this other sequence kicked in. And that is, first of all, I get this, if you like, insight out of nowhere. And from that moment, information, like physical information, if you like, regarding that subject starts coming into my life. And this happened with the moon, because when I started out to write Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, I was not intending to write anything about the moon. And I came in one morning, must be about 18 months ago now. And I sat down in this chair, and the energy in the room changed. And of course, after 20 years, you get to know the sequence. The energy, the atmosphere changed. And I thought, here we go. And clear as anything through my mind, it just said, the moon's not real. The moon's not what you think it is. And I thought, all right, then. Because I've been through this sequence so many times, it's like, okay, well, we'll go with this and see where it goes. So I put in a few key words into a search engine, and immediately up before me came a book called Who Built the Moon by Christopher Knight and Alan Butler. So I thought, well, let's make a start. I'll read that. So I sent for it, read it very quickly, and it absolutely was pointing in the direction of what I'd just come through my mind, if you like. And you know what it's like? It very much going back to what I've just been talking about. When you come into this world, you tend to accept that what is here is how it is. This is how things are, mate.
Christoph, let me ask you, why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
Let's go to Hollywood, California. You're on True Talk.
Hi, Christoph. I'd just like to say one thing. You're a liar and a manipulator, and what you've done to Truman is sick.
Well,
This video surfaced out of China, and it looks like their city is floating in the clouds. Of course, we can't verify if the video is real or not, but we have seen things like this before. This is a type of superior mirage called a fata morgana, where air temperature near the surface is actually cooler than the air above. It can make objects appear like they are stacked on top of each other, or in this case, like a city floating in the clouds.
The water. All right, Beatrice. There was no alien. Flash of light you saw in the sky was not a UFO. Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in a thermal pocket and refracted the light from Venus.
Well, wait a minute. So you just flash that thing, it erases her memory, and you just make up a new one?
A standard issue neuralizer.
And that weak-ass story is the best you can come up with.
What's going on there? Reroute it back through.
we need more light. You'll never find him this way. What time is it?
It's way too early for that.
Cue the sun.
What time is it?
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.
I don't even know what I can add to that. Like that was quite a lot. But what really made it stand out is the remote viewers suddenly like, oh, there's going to be all this weird moon stuff. And then Dick Algier, which is like one of the top ones of that group that I look at. They're like, oh, Cliff will like this. It looks like the moon, but it's controlled by these people down here. And then I see all these big gears and stuff like that, which I didn't know what that was at the first time until Epinoia brought the movie Moonfall to my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that was in the movie Moonfall. It's like a mega structure, and that's the whole inner mechanisms of all that stuff. And the whole moon isn't what we think it is has been a big conspiracy nugget for a very, very long time. You know, I had that David Icke clip in there. He was one of the first people I heard talk about that. And when he said that, you know, he literally described in that section, like exactly how Epinoia works. I'm like, yep, I know exactly what he's talking about. And guess what? She's told me the same thing. But it's one of those things that like, what can you do with that? Nothing. So why talk about it? But the funny thing, like the clips we had in there, like Men in Black and all that stuff, it's like no matter what it is, authority, officialdom always has an answer. Oh, that's, you know, there's always an answer. Oh, we've got it all figured out. Quit looking at that. There's always an answer. But if you like look into the moon thing, like just the fact, like it doesn't make sense. Like no matter what, you know, it's supposedly rotating at like the exact perfect rate. But it's also at the exact perfect spot, so it lines up with the sun exactly perfect. But man, you'd think even if that rotation was off by just like the tiniest hair, we would see the face of the moon change, but we don't. We always see the exact same shit. Like that thing is just sitting there, stationary. That is what it is. I don't care what the enforcers say. I can look at something and be like, yeah, that's strange. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's been a while since I looked at anything like that, but I guess there's it might have been Ike that talked about it. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But there's a lot of like ancient stuff about, you know, people's writings. Like there was a time recorded time in history, like before like there was a moon there. There wasn't a moon in the sky. It just like, I guess, showed up one day. Or maybe it was during the last cataclysm or something like that, when people crawled out of their holes and like, oh, what's this thing in the sky? You know, who the hell knows? Like the moon's always been like a very enigmatic thing. And I know Ike's talked about it a lot. He gets a lot of craziness, you know, about the reptilian thing. But I think that this makes people uncomfortable. I talked recently when I talked about the 3 types of people. It's like there are people that are more material and maybe have the other thing, the psychical, that don't have the soul. There's people walking around here that ain't like you. And sensitive people can tell that they're freaking different. Does that mean that they're that thing? No, but who the hell knows? Like I've seen a lot of weird shit in my time. And there is, as much as I share on this channel, let's just say there's a lot of stuff that I don't share. Because there's things I've seen that like people just flat wouldn't believe me. But the world is like, these things are all pervasive throughout our history and our symbology, and people are drawn to it, drawn to certain things for a reason. Like there's been stuff in movies, there's been all sorts of stuff. It's one of those like, you know, if there's smoke, there's fire sort of things, but who the hell knows? But that's the thing about this time frame. Revelation, apocalypse, what's that mean? Unveiling. What's unveiling? Lifting the veil. What is the veil? The veil is the thing that keeps us from understanding and seeing what our reality really is and how it really works. That's a big key component that people don't quite understand when it comes to this whole final sequence of the world game. Is all this stuff that has been hidden will be unveiled. If you don't think that can't happen, well, look at this. And it's only because it's relevant now. For decades, the U.S. government has vehemently denied things like UFOs. Oh, y'all are a bunch of crazy people.
And he went to humorous and controversial lengths not to stir the pot. He held a news conference after the Phoenix Lights to announce the mystery had been solved.
And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please.
In the alien costume, the governor's chief of staff.
Now, this just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
UFO enthusiasts were not amused, especially since the governor was believed to have seen nothing. But now he's coming out.
Like, I watched I don't remember what it was or what streaming service it was on. It was like a 4-part miniseries about that stuff. And like, if you go back a couple decades and you had some sort of UFO experience, like, that was not a good thing for you. Like, people could not accept it. And what really stood out to me in that particular series was the story of John Mack, the psychologist that wrote all those alien abduction books. Like, this was like a really renowned guy, and he had tenure at one of the big schools. I don't remember which one it was. It could have been Harvard, could have been Yale, could have been something. But he was simply being a psychologist and studying these people that said they were abducted. And he was analyzing things as any psychologist would. But he got so much flack for it because what officialdom wanted him to do was simply, they were charging him with like malpractice, because he was not simply diagnosing these people as Looney Tunes, because the standard that have been collectively agreed upon is none of this stuff can possibly be real. So if you're entertaining this and not automatically diagnosing these people as Looney Tunes, then you are engaging in malpractice and need to be removed. And there was this big movement to get John Mack to lose his tenure and all this stuff. It's a big, long story. But that was then. Where are we today? The U.S. government. Oh yeah, they're real. But oh yeah, here's videos of like UAPs from our F-18 gun cameras, and here's a video of one from a U.S. Navy ship, and like, oh yeah, they're real. We're not really sure what they are, but you can best be assured they're not friendly. So now we're at a place where everyone is so disenfranchised with everything, and everyone has seen so much weird stuff. Then when the government, after decades of lying to your face and telling you that this is bullshit, and you're crazy if you believe it. It's, swamp gas reflecting off a weather balloon that's reflecting the freaking light of Venus off a hubcap that some kid threw. So after all of that, then just all of a sudden they change the tune and they're like, oh yeah, it's real. And at this point, it's like the population, it just doesn't care. They've kind of like already made up their minds, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we figured, so what? Like, nobody was shocked. Like, the U.S. government actually came out and admitted that these things are real, and nobody gave a shit. They admitted that it was real after vehemently denying it for decades. Well, that's just one big subject in which, look at it at the face. Like, this is UFOs are like near the top of the conspiracy topic out there. It's always been one of the biggest ones ever, because it goes back to antiquity. And they said it wasn't real, and then they just suddenly changed their tune. So when they do stuff like that, then you can't get too wrapped up about anything else they say isn't real too. Well, you lied about this, and then you came out and said it was real. So it's kind of like it's this planned, staged disclosure, which aligns with removing the veil. Like, as we move into like the final act of this big crazy game that we're in, we're going to find out that most of this stuff, that there was actually something to it all along. And that moon thing is a big one. So, like, suddenly this is all a lot more interesting to me, because I was like, ooh, like, maybe I do want to stick around here a little bit longer to actually see all this stuff. Because, I mean, it's already been like that for many years. It's like the conspiracy theory guys usually end up being right. And what is the one thing What is the one positive common denominator when it comes to conspiracy theorists? First of all, that's just a term that officialdom created in order to demonize people that were thinking outside the box, because that's what sets them apart. They think outside the box. They do not just accept the story that authority wants to force down your throat. Now, granted, a large portion of them, they can go too far with it. They do not retain their objectivity that people like me still have, because I can still say, this is definitely interesting, but I don't know. I can look at something without attaching to it as if it's real. It may very well be. Matter of fact, there may be a lot of evidence that it is. But the fact remains, I don't know. And I can't prove it. So unless I can somehow magically fly to the freaking moon and see what's really going on up there, then we'll just have to wait and see. Now, the one random thing that was in that video clip that you might not know what it was, and unfortunately I couldn't find the more interesting videos, because there used to be this guy on YouTube, and he was kind of, I mean, he wasn't all there, but he did show some pretty interesting stuff. There's still some videos out there, but you know, I just can't find any good ones. I never fully understood it. But a lot of people were doing this thing like this, like, I don't know if they were referring to like what's actually above us or the project itself, but they called it Sky Dome Atlantis. And they came up with this crazy way to, with the right cameras and stuff like that, you could see like weird shit in the sky. And it had this convex, like, I don't know what the right word is, like this lens. It was like a dome, and you had to sit it over top of something weird. I forget, I don't know how it works, I don't remember. But then you point your camera into it and you play around with the focus, and it's like refracting the sky somehow. And you mess around with it and get it just right. And all this weird stuff appears in the pictures, like all these crazy like structures. It's like it's getting through some sort of like some sort of like illusion field or something like that. It's like, what the hell are all these things in this picture? Like some of them might be videos, so you can see them like focusing in on there, and it's just like it's doing something, and it's revealing all this weird shit in the sky. And that's actually like non-commodity stuff too. It talks about the rulers, the archons, you know, the spirits of wickedness in high places. They rule from the sky. The whole thing is like, she's bringing up in my head the movie Nope, with the sky monster alien that looked like a UFO that sucked people up and ate them, but it hit out like clouds that don't move. That was another weird rabbit hole we went down once, but I've seen that before. It's like, she's pointed it out to me. It's like, see that big cloud up there? Notice anything about it? I'm like, yeah, it's sitting still, but the rest of them are moving. How is that possible? And then they made a movie about it. In those particular things, like, it's always like the same imagery. They put it in all sorts of movies. They're almost like freaking sky jellyfish or something. It's like, it's Archon shit. Really, really weird stuff. Like, there's no point in going down that rabbit hole. But the bottom line is, like, there's always been things hidden in the sky. Now, the one time I can actually say that I saw hidden things in the sky was way back, like close to 2000. So I bought from this guy that used to be on my ship, or I don't know, was he on my ship or was he on a ship like mine? I forget. I didn't ask where he got them. but he had a pair of actual military Generation 3 night vision goggles. So Generation 3 night vision goggles are a higher kind of tech that are different from any of these night vision goggles that you buy commercially. And I used them back then, like that's when I was like in the early days of like the ghost hunting, paranormal research, like before I transitioned into a higher level of stuff, of being able to actually remediate and make that stuff stop. Back then I was just like doing it like all the other ghost hunters. But it had a lot of these different features that made them interesting, like the X-ray close feature. So that's kind of like how the original Sony night shot cameras were. It's like if you had somebody like had light clothing on and you looked at them with the goggles, like you could see right through it. It was crazy. But what was really interesting about those Generation night vision goggles is if you looked up in the sky. So I used to see stuff that looked like there was stuff in the sky that looked like our craft, some stuff that we have, fighting other stuff that clearly wasn't ours. And the reason I identified like that is because I was looking at these things that looked like they were flying in formation, and then there would be like these other weird little lights in the sky that like change shape and stuff, and these other ones would be coming at it, and then they would like all split up and go all over the place. I'm like, what in the shit am I looking at? Like, this looks like some Stargate SG-1 stuff. You know, that's another big thing. It's kind of like, oh, there's all this weird stuff going on behind the scenes that regular people can't see. Well, I'm sitting here looking at it. And I've actually seen some of that black triangle stuff before. And I know other people that have too. Where I live in Columbus, Ohio, guess where you typically see them if you are going to see them? You got to go southwest side of Columbus and go further southwest. And right around down there is, we've got Battelle National Labs. I'm sure they got places, I'm sure they're in other places around the country, but there's one here. And if you go straight east of Battelle National Labs, that heads directly toward Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is the place where they allegedly took, you know, like the Roswell stuff. Now, my dad, before he retired, he was in the Air Force Reserve, and he used to go to Wright-Pat. And he always said, like, he didn't know what was there, but he's like, there is a place at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base that is so heavily guarded, and it is guarded 24/7, 365 days a year. Like, they don't let anybody near that section. So you got this Battelle National Labs, which is like, you know, it's kind of like one of those spooky corporations, you know, like Lockheed Skunk Works or Raytheon, stuff that deals with high-tech stuff, and it's right here next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And guess what? This is the area where anybody around where I live sees like the black triangles. You know, 3 lights and then the red one in the center. I've seen them. I've seen them in West Virginia too, like driving back and forth through the mountains between Norfolk, Virginia, and Ohio. So yeah, like that's what it looked like I was seeing through the night vision goggles, doing like space battle crap. You know, and I take them off and like you can't see anything. You put those military grade night vision goggles back on and you can see weird stuff. That's like one of the biggest things I regret in my life selling. Because I got tired of doing that stuff, and it's like I just wanted to do fun stuff like play paintball. So my dumbass actually sold them so I could build this $1,200 paintball gun. Oh, I regret that. But anyway, bottom line is there's a lot of weird shit that sometimes you get glimpses of. That officialdom will tell you you're crazy, it's not real. Only to find out later, the same officialdom will come out and say, oh yeah, it's real. So you admit that you lie. That's what you essentially just did. Been lying and harassing people for decades, but when it suits your purposes, because you probably got something up your sleeve, then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, they're real. And it's like, is nobody gonna like account for this? So they lied about something for decades, and then they said it was real. So what about all the other things that they say that they lie about? You're like, you're crazy if you look at this. Stop looking at it. You're crazy if you look. So, well, you did the same thing with UFOs. So it's not a stretch to just simply not trust you. Like I said, what is our general rule of thumb around here? Whatever authority tells you, assume the opposite. So the last thing I had written down for this, I kind of already explained, so I don't need to go deep into it, but I call them the enforcers. It's the enforcement's arm. Some people are in it willingly because they just drank the Kool-Aid so much. Other ones are part of the system, and some of them are actually AI algorithms, not even real. But watching where these people congregate tells you something. So they are the nastiest people on the internet. Like whenever there's a conspiracy theory, whenever anybody's questioning the story that authority gives them, what's the official story? Whenever anybody's doing that, whenever anyone's coloring outside the lines or thinking outside the box, a swarm of these demonic assholes will just come down on them like a cloud of locusts and just say the most vile, mean, condescending crap. Talk about how stupid you are, and these people, they're not connected with reality. Well, whose reality? The official story of reality? Because I already know that's crap. You can't convince me of things that I've already seen and experienced myself. Like, I know this place. Like, I can't say I fully understand it, only insofar as what she's told me, but I know it isn't, the world is not what they tell us that it is. But whenever these things come up, these demon locust freaking condescending, ridiculing assholes will descend like a cloud to try and beat the hell out of anybody that's getting other people to wake up. Waking up doesn't necessarily mean you know. It simply means like you're just not accepting the program anymore. You don't know what's real, what's not, but you can see the evidence that's clearly right in front of your face that weird things happen and officialdom lies about it. Nothing's magical, nothing's mystical. There is no conspiracy theory. It's always a crazy lone shooter, nut job. It's always swamp gas reflecting the light of Venus. It's always this, it's always that. Science is your God. If a scientist says it, then you're not allowed to argue it anymore because the scientists all agree. Well, of course they do. What have we detailed on this channel that we learned straight from the Nag Hammadi? The authorities. Authority is the people that run stuff, and they like to enforce the story of the world that they want you to believe. But we're in a time frame of unveiling. And some of these shocks will be big, some of them will be small, but the bottom line is weird stuff is happening. And it's lining up with a specific time frame that Epinoia gave me. And we're starting to see it pan out. We're starting to see the remote viewers see the things that I'm seeing. And then they're starting to, when we keep detailing on all these hits that the remote viewers have that are happening at the same time that Epinoia pointed me to a year and a half ago, saying like, this is the time that it's going to start to come apart. We're in that time right now. So the remote viewers keep hitting these things out of the park. And so far, it's basically been like the less fantastic ones, but the bottom line is they're still seeing it. Like I said earlier about the Obama thing, it's like, what? Obama in the Oval Office? What's that about? Now we're starting to see. Oh, there's going to be this big assassination attempt, but we don't know if it's going to be successful. Oh, that just happened. So they're hitting all this stuff. But they're also seeing much, much, much bigger things. They also saw the cyber attack thing. They're seeing much, much bigger things, which is the bigger things that she's showing me. So there's a common thread here. So if they're seeing all this stuff clearly, and they're seeing all this stuff clearly, then it's not a stretch to think like eventually these things are going to start to manifest too. There was one other crazy thing that I didn't feel was like worth like making a big segment about, but a couple of the remote viewers saw it. Some of them, one of them saw it pretty freaking clearly. And I actually saw like a video meme about it on Facebook not that long ago, in which the video meme was like somebody was coming into like a card shop, like, yeah, I want to sell my Illuminati card deck game. Like, oh my God, look at this. And they point out like this, I'm sure you've heard of the Illuminati card game. It's pretty much got like every freaking big event that's already happened. But they're like, you know, there's only 2 cards in this deck that haven't technically happened yet. Asteroid Strike, which we talked about, and Zombie Apocalypse.
I wasn't even gonna put this one in there, but you know, just gotta put what you get here. I feel like this is something out of like Resident Evil or like a zombie movie. Like a woman biting someone, like almost like a cannibal type story. Terror, sick, rabid, disgusting. And it looks like a man on a bed and then a woman on top. So I don't know if it's a nurse patient or a wife husband or boyfriend type relation there, but struggle, blood, flesh, yells, some kind of weird cannibal type story or biting story.
Thanks a lot. Now I'm gonna have nightmares.
We've all got, everybody's got a joke line going through their head, like, stop remote, you know, I thought of 2, but I'm not going to say them because it'd be distasteful. But...
Fever detected. Hemorrhagic fever, I question? Outbreak? People's faces are red. I didn't go too much further into that other than ugly red fevered faces.
That's the other thing that they're seeing. Just bits and pieces, like maybe 3 of them. One of them was a lot more. He's like, I'm seeing like this woman, I don't know, she's like sick or something, but she's attacking this dude and she's eating him and ripping chunks of flesh off of him. And another guy drew like a bunch of people walking like this. And he's like, well, maybe that's like a metaphor because I typically, when I think of zombies, I think of people that are living unconsciously. But then another one said, just saw a little clip and it's like, you know, people with their faces flushed, sick. I'm like, it's like hemorrhagic fever, question mark, which is one of the things, you know, like associate. It wouldn't be like a supernatural Walking Dead zombie. It would be more like 28 days later zombies. And I've told people before, like when we were talking about the Nexus points and we were around the Ring of Fire eclipse of last year, Epinoia started talking about zombies. I'm like, what? She talking about Willis? And then a couple weeks later, like maybe 2 weeks after she brought it up, then other people started talking about it. And there was a big conspiracy theory at the time because they were doing some sort of like national alert test or something. Oh, it's going to send out this signal, this gigahertz signal that's going to activate these little things that's in the stuff that people injected into their bodies willingly, and it's going to change them and turn them into zombies. Well, clearly that didn't happen. But in the videos that we did, Epinoia explaining things like nexus points as being like these certain time frames that link in time space to all these other points. So like you can get near a nexus point and start picking up on things that aren't actually close, but they're connected in the time space matrix. I'm like, well, that could be it too. But anyway, I wasn't like really concerned about that. but remote viewers are starting to see it. I'm like, are they going to drop that on us too? And basically what she said is all these big themes that are very popular and that people are attracted to in the collective zeitgeist. Like we're interested in certain topics and certain movies and certain TV shows because there's something that's fascinating to us about them. Like that's there for a reason. And it could very well be because in the last big act of the Great World Game, all this stuff is going to be unleashed. And everyone's just going to be like, what the hell? This is crazy. Like everybody's sense of normalcy, like the veils is going to be ripped off of them all at once. And it's like, oh, the world is not normal like you thought it was. It just wasn't time yet. And the stuff that I've seen in my lifetime, shit, anything is possible. Like nothing would freaking shock me. Like nothing would shock me. I've already seen enough stuff that's just like, I can't believe this is real, but I'm looking right at it. I mean, hell, look at her. Sometimes I can't believe she's real, but she is, because she does not exist solely in my head. She interacts with other people. She can affect things in the exterior world. She can do all sorts of stuff. She's explained very clearly in all the ancient texts. Like, I know what she is, and she's real. So all this other stuff, like, could be. I don't know. But this is going to be a very long video, but it was fascinating because, like, I didn't expect any of that. I thought, like, that was pretty much going to be it when she did the whole random song that I wouldn't normally think of and just start playing it in my head. When she does that, there's something in the lyrics that you got to look at. And it's usually a song that you might not know or might not be attached. There's no reason for it to be playing in your head because you don't like the song and you haven't listened to it a lot. It's kind of like if you hear it on the radio, you're going to change the station because you don't like that song. But then you look at the lyrics and it's like, oh, this is talking about all the other stuff that she's been talking about lately. I thought that was big enough. And then it was just like, oh, and then there's this. 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 It's like, holy crap. This is 100% revelation apocalypse, which means unveiling. Things are going to get weird. When they're going to get weird, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to stretch out for. I don't freaking know. But we crossed the threshold at July 15th. The Mars-Uranus conjunction on Algol, and we've got all sorts of astrological alignments going all through August. So who the hell knows? Just be frosty and expect anything. Expect the unexpected. So you will not be shocked when whatever happens, happens. But it's not going to be hidden anymore. It's going to be revealed because this is the time of revealing. So in the meantime, what you want to do is get right with yourself. Get right with the inner light within you and connecting to it and dropping all your past attachments, dropping all your negative energies, dropping all your traumas, connecting every way you can to the light within you that everybody has, and the higher consciousness. That's what we do here. We don't deal in fear porn. We deal in connecting people to the light within them. That's what we make all this stuff for. That's what the energy work we do is about. Connecting you to her. And from there, we gotta, there's so many things that, we can't go through them all because I just talked about it for a couple years on this channel. There are things in your mind, in your body, that are set up to prevent you from connecting to this. So I had to figure out my way through it myself. And then as I go further and get better with it and I get more and more help from her, I can then start assisting people in unplugging them from these restrictions in their consciousness, in their energy field and stuff like that, that's there to prevent you from connecting to spirit. That's straight out of Genesis in the Bible, which I'm a Gnostic, so I have a bigger version of the story. I'm taught by her, who is among many different names, the actual Holy Spirit, the revealer, the teacher, the instructor, the Spirit of truth, the one that helps you understand all this stuff, the thing that Jesus passed the baton to in the book of John of the regular Bible, when he told him, I'm leaving, but I'm going to set you up with what can come after me, the Spirit of truth that will live with you and live in you, and it will guide you from here on out. Church still has you trying to talk to him. He ain't here. She is. He specifically said in your book he was passing the baton to her. Of course, they gender swapped it, but because we use the Gnostic books, we know better. So I don't remember where I was going with that, but like that's what we do. We connect you. We know the mechanisms that they conditioned into you, that are in your mind, things you may not have discovered, why you have all the negative thoughts and fearful thoughts, and you're driven by your impulses. I gotta have a Starbucks. I gotta go watch porn. I gotta eat this certain thing. You're just following these impulses. It's making you imagine things that aren't there, conflicts with other people. Oh, I know what I was saying. So in the regular Bible, when the bad guy kicks Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, he curses them with all this stuff, and is specifically stated the reason why he's doing it. Of course, it's even more clear in the Nag Hammadi, is to keep them so busy with just trying to survive in the world that they don't have time to seek the Spirit. That's why he did it. See, the guy at the beginning of the book in the Old Testament and the guy in the New Testament, which Jesus calls Father, is not the same thing. If you haven't figured that out by now, you need to, because it's not the same thing. But enough about that. We can connect you to her. She's the one that basically drives this channel. She's the one that provides what we talk about every single day. I'm just here to execute. So you can contact us through our Etsy store. It's where you can get our energy pendants and all that stuff, and reach out to us to ask us questions. clumencreations.etsy.com. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.
Take a look to the sky just before you die.